Breaking news from Canada. In 2025, the Canadian government has officially ended the 10-year tourist visa. This is one of the biggest changes to Canadian immigration and travel policy in years. For many families, frequent travelers, and business visitors, this update changes everything. Now, you might be asking, why is this such a big deal? Let me explain. For a long time, the 10-year multiple-entry tourist visa was one of the most convenient options. It allowed people to enter and leave Canada freely for up to a decade without constantly reapplying. Parents could visit their children studying in Canada every year without stress. Business travelers could attend conferences and meetings without worrying about paperwork every trip. Even tourists who loved returning to Canada for holidays found this visa incredibly valuable. But as of 2025, this option is gone. The Canadian government has confirmed that no new 10-year tourist visas will be issued. If you already have one, it remains valid until it expires. But once it ends, you cannot renew it. You will have to apply for a short-term visitor visa instead. So what does this mean? It means more paperwork, more frequent applications, and potentially more uncertainty for millions of people worldwide. In this video, I'm going to break everything down. Why Canada made this decision, what it means for travelers, what alternatives exist, and how you can prepare for your next trip. This is not just a minor policy update. It's a major shift that affects students, families, tourists, and businesses. And if you're planning to visit Canada in 2025 or beyond, you need to hear this. Let's step back for a moment and understand what the 10-year tourist visa was and why so many people relied on it. The 10-year visa was officially called a multiple-entry visitor visa. Once approved, it allowed you to travel to Canada as many times as you wanted within a 10-year period, or until your passport expired, whichever came first. Each visit usually allowed you to stay for up to 6 months. For parents, this was a lifeline. Imagine a mother in Nigeria whose son is studying in Toronto. With a 10-year visa, she could travel every summer or winter to see him without filing a new application each time. For business executives, it meant the freedom to attend yearly trade fairs, corporate events, or client meetings without constant visa stress. For frequent tourists, it meant exploring Canada's provinces year after year with one simple document. It wasn't just convenient, it was cost-effective. Instead of paying application fees and waiting months for processing every time, you could secure one visa and use it for years. That's why many travelers considered it one of the most valuable visas available. But Canada's immigration system has been under enormous pressure. Record numbers of international students, workers, and tourists are entering the country. Processing times are stretched, and authorities believe that the 10-year visa, while convenient, made it difficult to manage short-term entry controls effectively. So as of 2025, the Canadian government has drawn a line. They're phasing out long-term multiple-entry visas in favor of shorter, more controlled visitor permissions. This is why today's update is so important. It marks a turning point in how Canada manages temporary travel. Now let's dig into the real reasons why Canada decided to end the 10-year tourist visa. Reason 1, national security. The government argued that long-term visas created gaps in monitoring. Once someone received a 10-year visa, they could travel freely for a decade, even if their personal situation changed dramatically. For example, a person could lose their job, face legal issues, or become involved in fraudulent activities in another country, yet still hold a valid Canadian visa. That, according to officials, created a security risk. Reason 2, fraud and misuse. Over the years, Canada has documented many cases where people used fake documents to obtain long-term visas. Others entered as tourists but overstayed, worked illegally, or even tried to transition into unauthorized status. The longer the visa validity, the harder it was to control misuse. Reason 3, immigration pressure. Canada has welcomed record numbers of immigrants and international students in recent years. While this is positive, it also means more demand on the system. Ending the 10-year visa is part of a wider strategy to reduce pressure on the border system and give immigration officers more flexibility to assess travelers on a shorter timeline. Reason 4, technology and modernization. Canada is moving towards a new system, digital entry authorizations, biometric verification, and visas. These tools give more control and allow authorities to make real-time decisions about who enters. A static 10-year visa doesn't fit with this new model. Let me give you an example. Imagine a person who received a 10-year visa in 2015. That visa would still be valid in 2025, regardless of whether the traveler's situation changed. Canada wants more up-to-date checks every time you apply, and that's why shorter visas are seen as safer and more reliable. So while this change may feel inconvenient, from the government's perspective, it's about closing loopholes, increasing security, and modernizing the visitor system. So, what does all this mean for travelers in 2025 and beyond? Let's break it down. If you already hold a 10-year visa that was issued before this announcement, you can relax. Your visa remains valid until it expires. You can continue traveling under the same rules, but, and this is key, you will not be able to renew it when it ends. Once it expires, you must apply for a short-term visitor visa. For new applicants, the only option now is the short-term visitor visa, usually valid for up to 6 months per trip. This means you'll need to apply again if you plan multiple visits over the years. This has major implications for families. Parents of international students will face more applications if they want to visit their children frequently. Grandparents who used to fly in every summer to see their grandchildren will need new approvals more often. It also impacts business travelers. Companies that relied on long-term visas for executives, conference speakers, or frequent clients will now have to plan more carefully and possibly face delays. And then there are the tourists. Imagine someone who loves skiing in Whistler every winter. Instead of holding a 10-year visa, they'll now need to go through the application process again and again. The main takeaway is this: travel flexibility is reduced. Costs may go up because of repeated applications, and travelers need to plan their trips with more attention to timing, paperwork, and approvals. So while Canada is not closing its doors, it is tightening control. If you're planning to visit, you must be ready for more applications, more rules, and possibly more waiting time. Now let's talk about solutions. If the 10-year visa is gone, what options remain? First, Canada will still issue short-term visitor visas. These typically allow you to stay for 6 months at a time. While less convenient, they are still accessible to millions of travelers. The key is to apply early, prepare documents carefully, and expect longer processing times. Second, if you are from a visa-exempt country, you can still use the Electronic Travel Authorization, or ETA. This is a simple online approval, valid for 5 years or until your passport expires. For those who qualify, it's faster, cheaper, and much easier than a full visa. Third, Canada is working on special business travel permits. These will allow frequent flyers, especially executives and entrepreneurs, to make multiple short visits without applying from scratch each time. They may not be as long as 10 years, but they're designed for flexibility. Fourth, there are other categories such as super visas for parents and grandparents of Canadian residents. These allow extended stays of up to 2 years at a time, but they require meeting stricter financial and insurance requirements. Finally, my advice is this: plan ahead. The days of having one visa for a decade are gone. Now you must think carefully about your trips. Apply months in advance and make sure your documents are flawless. If you are a family member, coordinate visits with your children's school breaks or special occasions. If you are a business traveler, schedule trips well in advance to avoid delays. And if you are a tourist, keep in mind that each trip may now require a fresh application. So while the 10-year visa is gone, Canada is still open to visitors. It's about adapting to the new system. To wrap up, Canada has ended the 10-year tourist visa as of 2025. This decision was driven by security concerns, fraud prevention, immigration pressures, and a shift towards digital entry systems. If you already hold the visa, it remains valid until expiry. But if you're applying now, your only options are short-term visitor visas, ETAs, or other alternatives like the super visa. This change will affect families, students, tourists, and businesses worldwide. It may feel like a step backward in convenience, but from Canada's perspective, it's about control, security, and modernization. So before you plan your next trip, make sure you understand the new rules. Apply early and prepare properly. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone planning to travel to Canada in 2025. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more verified updates on immigration and travel policies. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next update.